Dave,
John,
Shane,
Chad,
these sci-fi guys.
Welcome to these Sci-Fi Guys. I am Dave, and with me is Chad, Shane,
Hello.
and
Howdy,
we're
howdy.
doing things a little differently now because the program we use all of a sudden decided not to use our videos. So I will be adding those in post-production. Something fun to do. Yay. Yeah. Well, the worst part about it is I had no notice. It was, hey, we clicked record, and then it's like nothing worked. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on? And we actually started an earlier one and realized nothing was working. So we just said, you know what? I guess that means we'll have to redo it again. So luckily, I mean, we had talked for like 2 minutes. We didn't even start the actual show. We just were talking, just like trying to figure out what was going on. But anyway, so today's show, again, is going to be pretty interesting because we're going to try something new. We are doing, on this 4th of July holiday weekend, we are doing Captain America, the first Avenger. You know, we've done Independence Day Resurgence. We did something, I forget what else, what the other year. And we wanted to go ahead and do something kind of, what?
I think it was just Independence Day and second one.
I don't think, actually, you're
Yeah,
right.
this is the third one.
Yeah, this is the third one.
Yeah, you're right. Independence Day, then we did Resurgence, and this is the third one. We wanted something America, 4th of July, you know, right here. You know, something along that line. So we decided to go ahead and go with Captain America, the first Avenger. There's not much more patriotic than Steve Rogers being a wimpy little kid, getting a super serum, and then becoming just a kick butt dude.
That's right.
So, yeah. You know, something I didn't do last time is I didn't give a little brief synopsis, and I want to go back to doing that, and I enjoy doing that. So Steve Rogers is a rejected military soldier, and he is transformed into Captain America after taking a dose of super soldier serum. Try to say that 3 times fast. SSS. But being Captain America comes at a price as he attempts to take down a warmonger and a terrorist organization. Yeah. So with that, let me move things around. John chose this, and now we're going to do questions.
All right. So honestly, I think this was one of the hardest ones I've had to come up with questions for, and I don't particularly know why, because it's not necessarily a hard-hitting movie. Maybe that's why. I don't know. Sometimes the blockbusters are a little harder to think of stuff for, but we managed, so here we are. So speaking of that whole super serum idea, in the real world, do you think we're more likely to head towards super serum or exosuits like Iron Man or Edge of Tomorrow?
I say exoskeleton suits. Just because if it was me, give me a choice of get injected with some kind of serum that would make me stronger and better. And like this first time trying it out, no, give me an exoskeleton where I can at least get out and nothing, no life alterations on my body.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I would say more of the exosuit, the exoskeleton, just because some of that technology is already out there, and there are some early ones that are being developed right now. Obviously, nothing like an Iron Man suit or anything like that. We're definitely not anywhere near that. But some basic exoskeletons and things like that are being worked on and being developed. Now, I think it would be more fun if you did a super serum. Honestly, I would honestly say sign me up for that. I think that'd be kind of fun. But
kind of fun, he says.
Yeah, yeah. But realistically, no, I don't think it'll go down that road.
I think I'm a little bit. I'm similar to you guys, but a little off. I think that in practicality, the exosuit is probably the number one thing we would do. I think if scientists could have their way, they would go with the super serum for sure, because they want to be able to get rid of sickness, do all these things, make you stronger, make you faster, not like with bionics or anything. I know that I'm dating myself. You guys don't know who Steve Austin is, probably.
Oh yeah, the knee braces, man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But think about it. The super serum probably is, I would say it's number 2. And then the Iron Man suit is just, I think that's out there. I think it's something they would love to do, but I just don't think practicality would be there anywhere near it. Just being able to have a power supply that's small and not, weigh you down, and have all the technology, the different weapons and everything. I mean, think about all the missiles and everything that he keeps inside of the suit, and then he gets shot and they don't blow up. I just, practicality, I think it is the exosuit, but I think if scientists have their way, super serum all the way.
Yeah, and I think the crazier part is both of these do exist in some ways, because I know we're working on genetic, at least chromosome replacements to fix diseases and stuff. So like, it's the research is out there, it's just not quite there. But I definitely think practicality wins out, like you said, Dave, especially when you consider if you have a suit and it's a general size and you just recruit people that are that general size, you just slot them in the suit. So if one man goes, you just got another one to slot in. True. Whereas the super serum, you take a big risk, especially early on. If that person goes, or if it's compatible with everyone, like, you have to develop for each person. It's just way more expensive to go, serum based or DNA replacement. Whereas a suit, you have the suit, you develop the suit, you make the suit better over time, and you just make it fit to the people. And I think it's much quicker, much more effective, and just practicality wise, a little easier to replace a pilot than it is to replace hundreds and thousands of DNA slots. So yeah, I'm with you guys. I definitely think this super serum idea is probably one of the most unlikely parts of this, but it's a fun concept to think of. So that idea of reality is where my second question came from. And that's a lot of this film, I think, does a really interesting job of combining real historic stuff along with, comic book ideas, which I know Captain America as a comic did that as well. But what do you think bridges the gap between reality and the comic book so well, particularly like in the film itself?
I had a hard time with this question, thinking what actually bridged the two. I mean, I think it was the actors. They were able to pull off the part. I mean, it was filmed in 2010. It was released in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about it, they're playing characters from the 40s.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's a lot of historical references there, like the cars in Brooklyn and different avenues and stuff, but I think the actors were able to sell it to make you believe that they really were there in that time. I think the costume, was also another thing that was really, the costumes and the sets, you notice, like anything that Tony Stark made, first of all, wasn't perfect. Not Tony. Was it Tony?
Howard.
What was the dad's name? Howard. Thank you. Not Tony. Howard. Yeah, you notice everything wasn't perfect. Like when he made the floating car, then it broke down. It's all the gauges and everything was all analog. I just think that the production side of it really was the true hero of that part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You even look at the Captain America suit when he first started. It went through changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and kind of to add on what y'all were talking about the realistic feel, one of the things that I think played a part in kind of bridging the gap of this was the music. Honestly, when you think about Alan Silvestri, I never say his name right. He was the composer for this. Very, very, very well known composer. Written a lot of movie scores, but one of the things that he did was he really embodied the patriotic element through all of the instruments he used, the instrumentation, the orchestration that he used. Did a really good job of capturing that Americana feel. Very, very patriotic themes, like the Captain America motive seemed like it fit absolutely perfect in the 1940s, which is when this would have been. So I think the way that he wrote these motifs for Captain America and for the different characters really helped bridge that gap as well, along with the storyline and the actors. I just think it was a perfect storm of everything coming together.
Yeah, fair. And see, I'll add on my side of this. I think, first of all, history-wise, there's a lot of actual real elements that at least were prototyped or planned for. And what I mean is, like, even Red Skull's little rocket airplane propeller thing, like that was something the Germans at least had on paper. So like that's a real element that they brought into the comic book world, and it works in the comic book world because you can ignore some physics and stuff, so it works.
Yeah,
you have this super realistic like sciencey feel, and then you have the Tesseract, which is totally not real. And so I think hinting a lot at like the props and stuff they use, and then even a lot of the camera shots. I mean, you go from this very realistic, almost documentary style, and then you get in a fight, and all of a sudden you kind of have more sweeping shots, which kind of the blur in a comic book when you get the pow and the bam. I think those two hit. They combine those types of shots well. You go from almost it's a more of a you have like the HD camera shots, and then even some of the more vintage where they add some grain to it and stuff in post. And so I think you add all that together, you have a pretty good gap between the two. All right. So speaking of bridging gaps, how are the good and bad of science depicted in this film? Because it definitely, I think, shows both some good ethical questions, and it raises some really awkward other ethical questions. So how are both of those sides depicted here?
Well, I think that you have to look no further than the two main characters, Captain America and the Red Skull. I think when you look at them, both of them obviously had the enhancement, and just the way that they were using their supernatural powers really makes a difference. When you think about Captain America, who was trying to do good, who was trying to help people, he was using the science for that, and even the scientist who gave it to him said that it had to be him because of who he was on the inside, and that's what kept him humble while he used it and made him use it for good. While the Red Skull was using everything, including the power of the Tesseract for domination, for gain and everything, and it was because of who they were. So I think your moral stance and your just frankly your personal morals drive that.
Yeah.
You gotta see, I remember the scientist told Rogers that, hey, he did it before, and the guy, the Red Skull, it was his morals, his DNA was not fit to the serum. So, and that raises a whole lot of questions. Why is it the same serum? Why does it change? So, but yeah, I agree with that. It's all morals. It's the morals of who you are, how you was brought up, how like he never ran from a he never ran from a fight. Like I'm going to stand up for myself somehow. So he stood up for himself.
Yep,
I can do this all day.
and he did literally.
Yeah. This kind of reminds me of The Mask that we watched a couple weeks ago. depending on who the user is, will determine the outcome of the person. Meaning,
Mhm.
like Steve Rogers was, you know, he was a little guy who always got picked on, and he hated bullies, hated them. So that was his whole goal was, you know, hey, because when they asked the question, do you want to kill Nazis? And he's like, no, I want to just, I don't like bullies. You know, I want to stop bullies. And right now, the Nazi German front or whoever ended up being Hydra were bullies. So that's why he wanted to do what he did. You know, and Red Skull was just the opposite. You know, he was a bully. You know, and so whenever he got the serum, it just made him that much worse. You know, when we went back to look at the mask, you know, you had Ipkiss, he became a lovable, goofy guy because that's who he was on the inside. You know, and then when it went on what Dorian, the bad guy, you know, it just made him that much worse.
Mhm.
Although I totally misread this question. I
Mhm.
thought you wanted something about, you know, when you said how good it or bad is this, is the good and bad of science depicted in this film. I was actually thinking of the music. Whenever you saw Red Skull, it was a little darker type music. It was a little bit more foreboding. When you saw when you had the music in the background for Steve, a lot of times it was uplifting. It was okay, he's down, but he's coming up. You know, that's kind of what that's what I thought you were
Yeah.
asking.
And Dave
I
just
mean,
hit the nail on the head.
Hey, he got applause from Dr.
I thought
Music.
you
I
were
mean,
going to
that's just
say
a
that too.
Hey, I was leaving it for you, Dave. I was leaving it for you.
as always meant to be. I mean, I'm even going as far as like, you know, on the German side, the way you were really voluntold that you were going to be a
Yeah.
candidate for the serum. And then on the American side, where they at least, you know, technically gathered volunteers and then elected one. Even that process being holistically different, the science of, you know, force versus volunteering, stuff like that too. I mean, it's just, there was a whole bunch of just good versus evil that they definitely threw in your face, but it's okay because it definitely works for the Americana, you know, wartime feel. I definitely think it worked very well. And so,
Yeah, and I think when they threw the grenade was probably the best part of showing who Steve Rogers was on the inside,
Mhm.
where he
Yeah.
was like, get away, you know, and trying to get everyone to shoo away, while even the Mr. Big, the guy that they were like, he's perfect, he should be the one, was hiding behind a Jeep.
Mhm.
You know,
Yep.
See, the thing, you look at you had Tommy Lee Jones say, this guy's is better fit. He passed all his physical statute. Well, the scientist said, no, Roger's going to be it.
because he knew what happened to Red Skull.
Yeah.
He
Yep.
knew what happened to Red Skull. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that was all shared information or if it was just that.
Yeah.
As
And
the old
experience is the
saying,
best teacher.
yeah, as the old saying goes, don't judge a book by its cover.
Yep.
Yep. All right. My last, I guess, serious question, because I have one more after, but my last serious question is, it's really going to be what sets a blockbuster apart. But I mean, in the sense that this movie has to balance a lot of different elements. You have science fiction, you have war, you have this realistic element it tries to throw in, and you have this superhero who is, you know, basically just a man who's elevated. You know, he's not necessarily tech based. He wasn't born that way. He's not a mutant. Like, well, I guess he is technically a mutant now with serum, but you get my, you know. So it's balancing all of these elements. So what allows a blockbuster to do that a little better than, I guess, some of the other films we watch at times?
Well, you got to think it's the storytelling on this. It's how they knew this is going to start off this movie's got to start somehow to build the Avengers. It's got to start somehow, and storytelling is the key.
Mhm.
Keep everybody interested instead of just, oh, I want to do this big old fight scene here, and then all of a sudden it's just all throughout the movie.
Yeah, I agree. I also wonder if it is because it did not focus heavily on just one aspect. Really, it tried to kind of hit everything. It talked about the war. There was some reality. There was some sci-fi. There was some superhero, but it wasn't heavily focused on one. the storytelling was done well enough to where there was an equal mix of everything to me.
So even though I'm sorry, Dave. Even
No,
though
go ahead, go ahead.
you hit they had Tesseract, you had Howard Stark, you had two other Avengers hints, Easter eggs in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I like your answer with storytelling, but I think it goes a little further than just storytelling. It's telling Captain America's origin story. At the same time, it's painting us a very good villain.
True.
And
Mhm.
blockbusters, good movies. I mean, you go back and look at, I mean, I can go back on our podcast movies that we've seen this year. The ones that have we rated high, all right, had a good villain.
True.
Mhm.
All right. So we watched Nine. Nine had a good villain. It was the whole
Mhm.
story of Nine, you know, and then how the well, basically that the robot that
Mm-hmm.
was the one was the villain, and it gave an origin story of the villain. We go back and look at ET. ET really didn't have a villain, but it was all the issues that ET had to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can't say The Martian because we were kind of split on that, Chad.
Mhm.
Rogue One. All right. We had director Krennic was a good villain. You know,
Mhm.
they painted him very well. You know, at the same time, then when we had our lead characters, you know, it kind of gave us a story for them. And then, of course, Iron Man. You know, you had Tony Stark and Obadiah. And actually, I think Iron Man and even this one, they went a little further. They didn't just have one villain. They had two, but one was definitely the main guy. The other one was
Yes.
working for him. You know,
Mhm.
Obadiah Stone was the main guy, but then you had that other guy that I can't remember who his name is, you know, that was kind of running the third world country.
Yeah. The Ten
Was
Rings.
his underling, you know. He was kind of the villain for a while until you found out, oh, it was Obadiah. You know, and this is the same way. You kind of saw what is it, Zerkoff? Anyway, the scientist guy.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
you're thinking he's kind of part of the villain, but Red Skull's the one that was really pushing him, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and I think Marvel does a really good job at that. They really do. I mean, especially when you go, I know we haven't watched it on this yet, but I know all of us have seen Avengers and seen Endgame and how Thanos was built up.
Mhm.
You know, if you build up a good villain, you build up a good movie typically, you know.
Yeah.
I hate to say DC, that's one of DC's issues is they
Mhm.
don't build up a good villain. You know, they did on, like, you go back and look at the 1989 Batman.
Mhm.
Fantastic movie because Jack Nicholson knocked it out of the park, you know. And I'll use Batman or the Dark Knight, you know. Heath Ledger built up the Joker as, you know,
Yeah.
a great character. Those are two of DC's best movies by far, you know.
Mhm.
Batman the original and then the Dark Knight, you know. And you look at some of the other ones. All right, for example, Superman 2 wasn't a bad movie. They had good villains.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that it's so dated because it was 1979, 1980, you know. So your technology wasn't there. But, you know, anyway, I'm kind of rambling. Sorry. So, John, you go.
It's true.
Honestly,
But no, John, you go ahead.
I say the only thing I think I would really add is how well Marvel, at this point at least, especially moving up towards what they were building towards with Endgame and all of that, I think they knew their audience very well. And I think that
Mhm.
shows with this film because it harkens back to the comics so well. Because I definitely agree. Good villain, good storytelling, huge. But also, they did all of that on top of just knowing, okay, people technically already know this character. We have to pay homage to that well, and this character already has all of these things to it. So let's make sure we cover that well in a way that is good to the source material. And I think audiences buy into that so well, especially if you're
Mhm.
faithful to what you're going from, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. I'm
You
sorry,
get one more
Shane. I thought
question.
you were going to add more. What you're going to do?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What I was going to say also, just to kind of add on to what Dave was saying, another thing that strong superhero movies do, especially Dave, when you're talking about things like the Dark Knight and the Dark Knight Rises and things like that. One of the things that they do is that the superhero has to have some kind of inner conflict to where they are growing in themselves. And even Steve Rogers has a little bit of this because he was who he was before the serum. And when he got the serum, one of the easiest things that could have happened was he becomes this whole new person. He becomes this Captain America, and he loses who he was before. He loses that Steve Rogers character. And you can sometimes here and there, you can see him kind of struggling with it a little bit. But it's that arc along with that strong villain that really sets these strong superhero movies apart.
Very true.
Yeah.
All right, less serious.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say it's not just superhero movies. You know, I went back and looked at some of the stuff that we rated last year. You know, the Iron Giant was the same way. You had a good villain, Kent. He was an idiot, but he was still a good villain. You know, and then you had the Iron Giant who was so lovable, and all that. So it helps the storytelling if you give it a good villain. If you give it somebody to root against. How about that? Instead of saying villain.
Yes.
There you go. Tracks. All right, less serious question. If you could just give the super serum to anyone else in the MCU, funny, serious, whatever, I don't care. Who would you give it to?
Deadpool.
I think
Deadpool is my chaotic answer.
That was my chaotic answer, but go ahead, Shane.
I think that Black Widow with the super serum would have been unstoppable. That would have been interesting to see.
That'd have been scary.
Yes.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think I disagree with you there because I don't think she's an assassin.
Yeah.
You know, and and the way she was raised, if you watch the Black Widow movie, the way she was raised, I think that's a bad combination there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
She would be just like,
I mean, it'd be cool.
Like Bucky Barnes, but worse.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Trying to think of the Ritter, the
Hawkeye.
I would say Hawkeye was my answer because I think he's at least neutral. Like he has some evil elements, like when he goes on his assassin's run in Japan, but otherwise he's a pretty
when he goes to
guy.
Ronin, yeah.
But even Ronin was after the Thanos snap, right? So like even then, sensibly he was just getting out some anger. Like he lost his whole family. I think the Ronin run's a little fair.
Yeah. I actually have three different ones.
Deadpool.
Deadpool's not one of them. That was a joke. Peter Parker. I think Peter Parker would be pretty good. I think he's got a good heart. You know, he just wants to be your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. You know, that's all he wants to do is take care of, even though it really wouldn't matter because he's already kind of got the same powers, that he probably wouldn't need it. Second choice would be Colossus from the X-Men.
Okay.
Because even though he's got that metallic form and all that, he's just got a big heart. He really is.
Yeah.
And then of course another one from the X-Men would be Professor X, Charles Xavier.
Oh, see, that would be cool.
I think that would be one. The super serum might actually heal his legs.
True.
So, that and just you notice all of them, especially in the comics. You notice he always still tried to look out for mutants, even the ones that were fighting against them. He always had a soft spot for Magneto, and he was just like, hey, let's just come here. Let's do this diplomacy, not we have to do that. So, what about you, John?
My chaotic answer was legit Deadpool, just because the chaos would be fun, but that's about where that answer stops. My other chaotic answer was Moon Knight. I think it would be interesting to see that because I don't.
Especially because he doesn't know who he is half the time.
True.
Yeah, I don't remember him being like particularly like bad-hearted per se. Like he's just he's lost.
Well, it
So I
depends
think it'd
on
be
which
interesting to see what
version.
that does.
The one
Yeah.
guy he was like an assassin, and then the other guy was he didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, very Jekyll and Hyde. It'd be interesting to
Yeah.
see how the serum would elevate that. And then my last answer was also Hawkeye, just because I think he was pretty solid.
Another one might be Falcon Sam.
It's true. See, I
Well,
wouldn't
they
have
kept
minded
asking
him.
him to take the super serum in New World, and he didn't want to do it because he didn't feel like he was worthy enough, which technically means he was worthy enough.
Mm-hmm.
I was about to say that puts him in contention.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Chris Pratt's character,
Star-Lord?
Star-Lord.
No.
Hey, just a trick.
Total chaos.
It
Heart
would
of
be
gold.
chaos. It would
Groot,
be
no, make it Groot. Groot
how about
self-sacrifice.
we-
with the super serum.
How about we come up with a plan that doesn't suck, Oh man. Okay. What are we doing next? Hey, is there any reason for us? Well, hold on. Let me go to here. I knew that. Let's look at Rotten Tomatoes. They gave it an 80%.
Okay.
And I'm like, 80%. It was such a great movie. I don't see how they didn't give it higher, but that's just me. Okay, budget or popcorn meter was 75%, which I agree with. I mean, that's actually one of the highest ones we've had so far, other than Iron Man. Budget was 140 million. I'm not going to ask y'all if it made money because you all know it did.
Yes.
But I was ready this time.
Yeah. Oops. That says budget 65 million. I didn't change that one. It was a budget of 140 million. It made 176 million domestically, 193 million internationally, for a total of 370 million. That is just the initial release, not anything else.
Which is also kind of funny that it made that much internationally.
That's what I was thinking.
That's impressive.
I was going to mention that,
it's Captain America.
True.
Captain America.
I know he's a Marvel superhero and all that, but it's ironic.
Well, Captain America, the latest one, Brave New World, made a ton overseas and like in China and everything.
Wow.
Because they didn't advertise it as Sam, they advertised it as Red Hulk. So it just depends on how you get it advertised.
Okay.
So
they know their
do you
markets.
guys really think we need to fix this at all? I honestly, I don't even want to even.
No, there's only like I might, and this is a big might, remove some of the middle part where it's like it just feels like it's stretched out a little too long and give
Speed
me
it
some
up
more
a little
fighting.
bit.
Yeah.
Give me some more fighting with him and Bucky and his crew. Like other than that, that's about it. That's all I would do. So yeah.
Speaking of his crew, I watch a show with my wife. I watch 911. It's just one of those goofy shows that we enjoy. Well, there's a character on there called Chimney. He's a EMT, and he was on Bucky or one of Captain America's team. He was the kind of the Oriental kind of looking guy.
Yeah,
that's
and I
him.
didn't even realize it until watching it through this time.
Yeah, I know. I didn't either. I guess when I started watching 911, I kept like, I know him from somewhere, but I didn't know where, and it must have been.
See, another thing, I would love to see Captain America interrogate the guy that killed his friend. Just to see.
I don't know if he would interrogate him. I think
I mean, just go in there like because the Tommy Lee Jones, you don't want Captain America in here. You just killed his friend, so you better speak up.
Yeah, maybe. And I do know the guy with the bowler's cap.
Yeah,
he was on 911 Lone Star. He was the police officer on it.
Yeah,
and I've seen him on several things too.
Suits, been several things.
Yeah, he's been on a lot of stuff.
So I mean, again, good cast, really good cast.
Yes.
So
agreed.
Let's go ahead and rate this. All right, we're going to rate this on a scale of 0 to 5 lightsabers. And if you don't say 5, you're dumb. No, I'm kidding. John, go ahead and rate this.
5. I mean, I even forgetting your comment. I mean, like it's legit. It's a great comic book film. It's great on the sci-fi side. It's great on the historical fiction side. It's just all around a wonderful movie. And yes, it's a blockbuster film made by a major company, but it's everything it should be for what they were trying to do. And I think it is one of the better films out there ever. And it's definitely one of the best we've watched this year. So yeah, solid 5 for me.
Yeah, definitely another key movie to launching the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's got to be a 5.
Chad?
Yeah, with the storytelling, all this, even keeping up with what it is, it's a 5. If people want to take note, just follow along what Marvel's doing right now.
Yep.
I'm not sure I'd say follow what Marvel's doing right now. I would
No.
say follow
Oh,
what
yeah.
Marvel did.
Did.
Well, actually, no, they're repairing it now. So I would
Yeah.
say right now, there's that weird gap in between I wouldn't follow them on.
Yeah. Yeah.
When Marvel started the Disney Plus series, other than Loki, they weren't great. They really were. I mean, for example, we're not doing Brave New World, but Brave New World, you would not have understood a lot of that movie if you did not see Captain America and Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
If you didn't watch that little miniseries, there would be stuff that you would have not understood.
Mm-hmm.
And then saying that Harrison Ford was the same guy that was in The Incredible Hulk, prior to all the
right
Iron Man, again, like She-Hulk was horrible. I'm sorry. People loved it. I didn't care for WandaVision until after like the 6th or 7th episode. Then it started getting good. They did the whole series on the other witch, Helena, or I don't know.
I didn't make it too far in that one. But now WandaVision, I do have to disagree on. It's just a phenomenal walkthrough, like television history.
Well, once they
Still
got
tying
past
the story.
the first few episodes of,
no, the sitcoms are what make it, man.
Oh no, I grew up on Lucy. No, it just, I was like, what is going on here? What is it? Hawkeye. What was Hawkeye's?
I'll be honest, I enjoyed his.
Hawkeye's was decent. It really
fun.
wasn't. It wasn't bad. Loki's by far was the best.
No, Loki's
Loki's
the one that will stand the test of time for sure.
Yeah. And you could tell a lot of the other ones were setting up stuff, like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and you knew was setting up something.
Yeah.
Although I still think they took away from, especially after watching Thunderbolts. Yeah. I think there was some things that were set up there that should have been, Thunderbolts should have been a movie about Bucky, not Natasha's sister. Sorry. I'll say it right here. Should have been about Bucky. Should have been all about Bucky. Bucky should have been the leader of that, not just a follower. No, I'm sorry. Anyway, okay, so we've rated it. We did questions. We're not going to do fixing and improving because we don't have anything to fix on this. Okay, we will go ahead and tell you about next time. We are going to do another behind the back. I can't even talk.
Behind
the big screen. We're doing we've been watching pilots. At least John and Shane have been watching pilots, and I've been asking them questions.
And they fly everywhere. It's great.
Yeah, they do fly everywhere. Pilot science fiction shows. I wanted to give them something a little bit humorous coming up next. So the next is Chuck.
Yes, because you wanted to make us chuckle, right, Dave?
No, because I know you like Zachary Levi. No. Chuck is, I'll just tell you this thing. He is a guy from the Nerd Herd.
All right, now be careful.
All right. You can't use, and he works at the Buy More.
Okay.
There a lot of similarities of that box store. Where it's not the worst.
Oh,
yeah.
There's a squad in there somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's basically a rip off of that, but he gets the entire database for the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, NASA, everything out there downloaded into his brain.
Hmm.
So, and then
Alright.
shenanigans happen. So,
Nice.
just want to that's a good enough way to start for it. And then after that, I'll just tell everybody after that, we have our 100th episode. We are doing our rankings. We have 53 movies that we have watched either together or as John, Chad, and I, John, Chad, and I, that's right. John, Chad, and I have watched all through the Sci-Fi Guys. We gave the whole list to Shane, and he's like, I've seen it. No, nope. Yep, seen it. So we've taken the ones we've seen this year, and then the other ones he said he has seen, and we're going to rate them. We're going to have a scale of 0. I'm sorry, not scale. We're going to go from 1 to 50. So those extra three aren't going to matter. But we're going to do them in tiers first, where basically, like, John will say, hey, here's my tier 5. And then Shane will be like, oh, no, I don't have that on tier 5. I've got that on tier 2. So then we'll move that one aside. And then we'll just kind of agree on what the tiers are. And then we'll go from there and actually, this is number 1. This is number 2. This is number 3. So I kind of figured out 10 in each tier because there's 5 tiers, 50 movies. Make it easy. And then we'll have to rate them in between each tier. So I can already see shenanigans are going to happen because I know Shane is going to rate Arrival much higher than myself will. So I'm just using that one as an example. We still have Contact and some of these other ones too. So just because you picked it doesn't mean it needs to be rated real high.
That's fair. That's fair.
And it is on how much you'd want to watch it again, how much you enjoyed it. Not plot holes, not, anything that we kind of, you can still use what we rate them on as a beginning point, but kind of make it your own. Just how much did you enjoy the movie? And you may have to fight. You may have to say, well, this is why it needs to be on. This is why Buckaroo Banzai needs to be on tier 1, even though Shane has not seen Buckaroo Banzai. So we've got to get him to do that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Anyway, just remember, everyone, no matter where you go, there you are. Until next time.
Crash and burn.
The Sci-Fi Guys is an independent broadcast by the Sci-Fi Guy Productions. For more information on upcoming episodes, follow us on Twitter or X at the Sci-Fi Guys. For our audio-only listeners, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Like, subscribe, or leave a comment to let us know how we're doing.